Good morning. It is filled to the brim. And as you know, if you listened yesterday, I am talking about healing. It's Wednesday, October 4th, and healing is the subject. I just got back from Poland, and I was in that part of the world for nearly a month. And the Lord really spoke to my heart unexpectedly about many things. One of the things that He really emphasized in the ministry there is the concept of healing, the power of His healing touch. And I'm wearing this cloak today to talk about how Jesus had healing in His wings. And I talked about yesterday, Matthew 9:20, how the healing power that came as the woman with the issue of blood reached for, yesterday I spoke about it, the tzitzi, the tassels, what they would use the same word in the Hebrew as wings. As she reached for the wings and received the healing that she had waited for 12 years, that it was a fulfillment of the prophecy in Malachi 4:2. But for you who revere my name, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in His wings, and you will go out and frolic like well-fed calves. Healing in His wings. The same word here used for the tzitzi of the cloak, reminding Israel to remain faithful to God. That's what was the purpose of the tzitzi, and I talked about that yesterday, is to remind them of the righteousness of God, to remind them of the commandments of God, to remind them of the promises of God, to remind them not to look away to other idols. Isn't it so interesting how in the story of healing, there's a temptation for humans to look away to other idols, to look away for resources and sources to bring us the relief that we need. And healing, the desire, the need for healing can become almost an idol, in that we will look for healing or relief from our pain or relief from our desperation, relief from the impossibility that we see. And we will take relief from anything rather than remaining faithful to Jesus. So in other words, healing can become an idol in itself. It also can expose the idolatry of fear. Because in this concept of tzitzi, the purpose of it was to remind the Israelites to not be afraid to go into the promised land, to keep their eyes on the one who can fulfill His promise. And it was reminding them of how Israel, because they were afraid, because they were filled with fear, they saw themselves as grasshoppers. And they believed that the enemy also saw them as grasshoppers. It's interesting how when we face those impossibilities, the greatest challenge that can come to our mind and to our spirit is that we see ourselves so small. And we can even see God as small in comparison to this huge obstacle, the obstacle of disease, the obstacle of the impossibility, the obstacle of the financial crisis, the obstacle of the mental illness, the obstacle of the relationship breakdown, the obstacle before us. And we begin to see ourselves as grasshoppers, like Israel did when they went into the promised land, this 12 spies, and 10 of them saw themselves as obstacles, and therefore they saw their God as small. They saw themselves as grasshoppers, which was the obstacle. Their own viewpoint on themselves and therefore on their God, because God had told them, He had spoke to them, He had said to them, I will give you this land, it belongs to you. But they did not believe the word of the Lord. It's interesting how healing in this story is so much deeper than even just a woman getting healed, but rather the confrontation of the idols that can come in our lives, things that we are looking to, things that are in our way, things that we are actually embracing without knowing it. That the healing becomes more important than the faithfulness to the Lord, the trust in the Lord, the rest in the Lord. the truth that his grace is sufficient for us. Does God want to heal? Absolutely. Is he a healer? Yes. In the story in Matthew 9, he heals. She reaches, she touches, she fixes her eyes on the promised one, the Christ, the Messiah, the one who would rise with healing in his wings. And she thought to herself, if I can only touch the tzitzi, I know I will be healed. I know I will be healed. The truth is, she doesn't reach for anything else. But it doesn't remove the truth of the story that it has a lot of depth in it about the tzitzi, about the Messiah, about what this represented to the people, that they were to fix their eyes on the commands of the Lord, the promises of the Lord. Fix their eyes on God and not follow after their own hearts, which would end up in fear. You know, it's interesting how fear can be stimulated when we face the giant of sickness, when we face the giant of disease, when we face the giants of impossibilities. And we are to have faith in God no matter the outcome as well, if it's a financial problem. We are to have faith in God no matter what the outcome, because his glory is going to be manifested. That's what the story is all about. His glory will be manifested. It reminds me of the story in the Old Testament of the 3 Hebrew children who got it right in their mentality, in fixing their eyes on the ability of their God. They were going to be thrown into the furnace. They would not bow to the idol. And so were they thrown into the furnace? Absolutely, they were thrown into the furnace. But they had the right mentality. Daniel 3:16-18. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he doesn't, we want you to know, Majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. So in other words, God, whatever you choose to do, I believe you can deliver me from the fiery furnace. I believe you can deliver me from this disease. I believe you can rescue me from this crisis. I believe, but I do not fix my eyes on the storm or the fire or the disease or the impossibility. I fix my eyes on you. I am not a grasshopper. You are not small. You are bigger. No matter what the circumstances say, I fix my eyes on you. I fix my eyes on Jesus. I fix my eyes on the Messiah. I trust him. He is with us. And he was with the 3 Hebrew children. Daniel 3:25, they say, look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of God. Fixing their eyes on Jesus. Not being double-minded. Listen, you and I are going to face trouble, tribulation, pain, challenges, obstacles, impossibilities. We will face them. Fix your eyes on Jesus. Don't look to the idol of an outcome. Let me say that again. Don't look to an idol of an outcome. In other words, that the healing or whatever resolution, whatever answer you're looking for becomes more important than your faithfulness to Jesus. That you're desperate to go find it anywhere rather than saying what this is all about is, I trust you, Lord. I trust you. I will not be double-minded. I will not have 2 minds. I will not have a worldly mind. I will not open myself up to a principality or a power or the things of this world or the answers of the philosophies of this world to meet my need. Rather, I will fix my eyes on you, just like God told Israel, which had to do with the tzitzi. Keep your eyes on me. Keep your eyes on my word. Keep your eyes on my promises. Don't look to the right. Don't look to the left. Don't look to what the world has to offer in this. Because what the world has to offer is temporary. What the world has to offer is a faux word. A fake word. A fake answer for you. It's interesting in this very story, and I'll end with this. So this woman, she is healed. She reaches for the tzitzi in the fulfillment of Malachi 4:2. But you know, in that same chapter, in Matthew chapter 9, part of that chapter had to do, prior to this story, when Jesus turns the water into wine, to new wine. And there is the declaration that the new wine is better than the old wine. And there's plenty of it. The new wine flows. Jesus brought the new wine. You know, it's interesting in that story that the new wine came out of the ceremonial vessel, meaning it was a clean vessel. And that new wine flowed from that clean vessel. Then later we find the story of this healing. There is plenty of healing he has. There is plenty of restoration that he has. You don't have to beg for it. You don't have to earn it. Fix your eyes on Jesus. Don't let the idolatry come into you, the idolatry of healing, that healing is the ultimate. No, he is the ultimate. Don't get in the idolatry of the spirit of fear, where I'm looking to everything else because I feel so small, and I feel like God is so small, and that God has become powerless because I'm still not healed, or I still don't have the answer. Fix your eyes on Jesus. You know what's interesting about this story is this. The new wine had come. Jesus had brought the new wine. In the Old Testament, when somebody who was unclean, a woman that was bleeding was unclean, when an unclean person would touch a clean person, that unclean person would make that person unclean. But when Jesus came, when an unclean person touched Jesus, Jesus made her clean rather than her making Jesus unclean. The new wine has come. See, you cannot make Jesus unclean. When you touch Jesus, everything that he is changes everything that you are, because you can't change who he is. He wants to heal. He wants to touch. He loves to do that. The new wine is here to flow. But more importantly than the healing is fixing your eyes on Jesus. How do you see him, and how do you see you in relationship to him? He is not too small. Nothing the world has to offer you will fill the need that you have. I want you to pray about this word. God bless you. I love you.